This iMac that I'm about to unbox cost me £10, or about $12. Does it work? I initially had concerns about the packaging. It looked like the box had been severely dented inwards, but it turned out that it had been packaged like this intentionally to fit the iMac a little bit better. All things considered, it was very well packaged considering the cost, so I can't complain at all. This is actually quite an interesting iMac. It's the first one Apple released after switching to Intel processors. This one has an Intel Core Duo. These were essentially just a 32-bit version of the later released Core 2 Duos. This chip in particular is a T2400 running at 2 GHz. This iMac also has 2GB of RAM and a 250GB hard drive. For graphics, it has an AMD Radeon X1600 with 128MB of video memory. This graphics card is the same as the one in the late 2006 models. It's not easy to tell how powerful it is, but based on research, it's significantly faster than the Intel GMA 950 found in my late 2006 MacBook. This iMac came with no operating system, but the seller assured in the listing that it was fully functional with a working hard drive. This was enough for me, and considering the price, it was definitely worth taking the risk. When I received it, I took my Snow Leopard disk and went through the install process. I was relieved when the hard disk was picked up in Disk Utility. I then reformatted it and installed the OS. This process was nice and quick. When finished, I double checked the specs to make sure it was all good. The plan for this iMac is to replace my G5. In Snow Leopard, I can run Rosetta, meaning PowerPC applications should run no problem. It's also faster, lighter, thinner and more stable to use than my G5, with faster USB ports and a newer operating system. This is going to be my bridge system between my PowerPC Macs and my newer Macs. It's striking how similar these both look from the front, the only difference being the iSight camera at the top of the 2006 model. They both have exactly the same display and the bezels are also the same thickness. The 2006 one is noticeably more yellow on the back, so I'm assuming it was by a window for a portion of its life. This doesn't really bother me as I'm not planning on using it from the back. So, how usable is this in 2023? With the right software, surprisingly, very. Between unboxing and this portion of the video, I installed a load of programs on it to make it more usable. I also updated it to macOS 10.6.8, so it's now on the latest version. The first and most important program is the internet browser. After looking up the best browsers for 10.6, I chose Arctic Fox. This is a reasonably modern flavour of Firefox that is specially modified to still run on Snow Leopard. By default, it loads websites using the mobile agent string, so they load quickly. In terms of support, this will load most modern websites, the only exceptions in my testing being Discord and YouTube Music. Ordinary YouTube will load fine. Video playback on this is tolerable, but certainly not perfect. In 360p, videos will play at about half their original frame rates, which isn't terrible, but is certainly noticeable. How about office stuff? As I run a YouTube channel, I write a lot of scripts. I also create spreadsheets to monitor things like my budget and spending. You can still download old versions of OpenOffice just fine. I found the latest version for this operating system and installed it. It runs absolutely fine, and I was able to do everything that I would need an Office suite to do. Time to see what that Radeon card can really do. It will be interesting to see how this compares to the G5 in performance. I'm going to be testing the same games as I did on the G5 to give a direct side-by-side comparison, starting with Minecraft for PowerPC. The reason I'm using this version is simply because I'm not aware of any Intel version for these older Macs. This runs fine using Rosetta. In terms of actual gameplay, it's noticeably faster than the G5, which is to be expected. While it's quite laggy initially, once the chunks have loaded, it runs at a pretty stable 40-ish FPS, which is almost double compared to the G5. This is also on higher settings. There will be some performance loss because Rosetta is essentially emulating PowerPC hardware, but it certainly does a decent job. The final test is Halo Combat Evolved. Does it run? Yes, and very well. I'm getting a solid 60-ish FPS with no real frame drops. While the G5 ran this quite well too, I'm able to run at higher resolution and settings than before while getting the same performance. It's worth mentioning that iMacs were never intended to be gaming machines. That's what the Mac Pros, PowerBooks and later MacBook Pros were made for, as they all had better graphics chips. Fairly soon, I'm going to be making a buying guide for old Macs, but for now, if you're looking for a cheap Mac, either to try out macOS or just for collective purposes, I actually wouldn't recommend one of these, unless you found one for $12 of course. Instead, I would recommend the late 2006 model. It's exactly the same, just with a 64-bit processor, which means you can run a newer version of macOS and better versions of Windows. They can also be found very cheap, commonly for under £30 where I live. That's a hell of a bargain.